Well, folks, it's good to be here. I'll give you a bit of a history lesson. I'm not a Monrush man. I'm a Melbourne man. There was a big divide. Folks that are originals here will know that. It was always Melbourne Magic versus Monrush. But in later years, I think we're all together now. But I want to just give you a little bit of background. I never write things down when I'm going to say or anything like that. It's not because I think that I don't need to. I just leave it up to the Lord and what He wants me to say. And I just want to give Him all the glory. But I think it's only right that I just split it in two, very simply. Who I was and what I did, and now who I am and what I do. Very, very simple. So, who I was. I had the worst upbringing of anybody in Monrush. It was terrible. My mum and dad, as a lot of people used to remind me, were Bible thumpers. Yeah. And the worst thing was, always in the summer, there was a series of gospel meetings, and it wasn't a week's mission or 2 weeks mission, 8 or 12 weeks, still going strong. And I was at them. And I hated it. So back then, I absolutely detested being brought up the way I was brought up. And I remember coming down the stairs, seeing my dad through the door. It was a big glass pane door, wee small panes, but it was fully glassed top to bottom. And this man down on his hands and knees, and I thought, goodness me, out for something to eat. He would have been praying. I would have been looking around, does anybody know me? What's this man doing? He's embarrassing me. And in my head, at a young age, mum and dad were just Christian folk. My sisters, my brothers were all Christian folk. I had respect for them, but I detested it. And I just thought, this was my life. They just must have been Christians all their lives. But then I remember at a very young age, I don't know exactly, but I remember seeing these green things in my father's arm. And I thought to myself, that's strange. I says, Dad, what's that? Don't you worry, son, what that is. Pile of tattoos. Well, as the years went on, then I found out the truth. My father and his uncle, who technically was his best mate, the late Wallace Kennedy, would have spent their time darts, pubs, and an odd scrap, because my father had a wonky nose, and that's where it come from. You see, he wasn't always a Christian. He lived in the world for quite a long period of time. I didn't know about it until I was a little bit older. But I absolutely detested my upbringing. I know a lot of testimonies, and it's reality for people that give their testimony. They would say, I fell into the wrong crowd. I can honestly say I didn't fall into the wrong crowd. My best mates at the very start would have been Gary Roseworth and Beef Young. We would have spent our summers building nets, just a frame, stuck it in the grass, and we'd have played headers and volleys until the cows came home, and then you'd have heard, Andrew! That was my mother, my Gesha. You see, and we would have been in. And that's what we would have spent our life doing. And I have to say, we were probably rascals, but in a sense, there was a limit. There was a limit to what we had done. We always would have had a respect for our surroundings. The odd time maybe we got into a wee bit of a mishap that we shouldn't have. But in general, we had good fun together, and we played all summer. Sometimes I'd have been down at the caravan. Me and Gary used to nick golf balls whenever the boys hit it over the hill. We'd have ran out and grabbed the ball and ran into all the bushes. But other than that, we had a very good upbringing. And the folks were always good to me. I know there would have been the odd teasing, as I said, about being a Bible thumper and all they got in the heat of the moment. But we always made up, and we got on very well. There was a few guys in Monrush I didn't get on well with, but we'll not embarrass them the night. But we were in Melbourne. I remember it was me and Gary, and I think Beef might have been there as well. I know maybe some of you don't know the nicknames, but it's Neil Young. I remember doing out Melbourne Magic golf tops. We designed them, and of course they were red, white, and blue. And we would have been over here playing Monrush, and it was Melbourne Magic against Monrush, and there was no love lost. I can tell you that. That's what we done when we were younger. But whenever I was about 15 or 16, then I got friendly with another set of friends, and some of them's here tonight, and I'm not going to try and embarrass them, they know who they are. And again, fell into, I believe, the right company, great friends. Yes, we were wild and things like that. I was probably one of the wildest, and we would have done this and done that, but there was always a limit. And I'm very thankful that none of my mates had any time for drugs. It was just something that was a no-no in our company and in the state. And thankfully I didn't go down that path. But whenever I was about 15 or 16, them semi-formals, I don't know if they still do a thing called a semi-formal or not now, but it was a semi-formal in our day, and that would have been my first taste of drink whenever I was whatever, 14 or 15. And that was the start of me drinking. I have a good friend here who used to be my smuggler, and he'll know why. He used to smuggle it over the back fence to me, and then I would have took an odd bottle of vodka here and there. But that's who I was, and partly what I did. Big change in my life came, I suppose, whenever I was starting to play football. I love football. Again, to be fair, I probably wasn't overly wise when I played football, and it was either the ball or the man. It was never both that got by, and got myself maybe a bit of a disciplinary record and things like that. But again, played for Coke United, played for a couple of people. But when I played for Coke United, and again, some of the guys are here tonight, really great bunch of friends. Like most weekends, there have been 20 or 30 of us out in the railway bar and things, and we all looked out for each other, and we're all friendly. Look, we get into a few scraps now and again, even just before somebody's wedding, and I'll not look at them because I might still get in trouble for it. But we get into a few bits of scraps and things like that. But again, I'm reiterating, it went so far. The reason why I'm saying that is because I believe 100% God was in control, not only of my life, but my mates' lives. Because we only went so far. And I'm thankful He was in control of it. But there came a time when a lady, something happened with a lady, and she took something belonging to me because I threw it at her house, and I wasn't overly happy with it, so I lifted a brick, and unfortunately the brick made contact with the front window. So anyway, the story goes, right, God is going to kill me. And my father would have made no apology here to march me back up to the door to apologise. But that night I happened to be going to a mission. I remember sliding down the seat, back row of the Cookstown Gospel Hall, and I remember telling Mum and Dad that I got saved. It was my mum sitting at the back, Dad, he was up at the front doing the singing, on up a bit. There was great rejoicing. Family circle complete. Andrew, the last of the four to be saved. This is great, this is fantastic. Different people phoning, telling me an answer to prayer from here, there and everywhere. And 2 days later, what had happened? I was the same old man. I was the same old person. I had not a thought of being saved at that stage, nor did I want to be saved, but I thought that would get me out of trouble. Now I want us to pause and think a little bit here. I was brought up in the gospel. I knew there was a God always. I knew Christ died for me always, but I had no time for it. But yet withal I played hard and fast with God's salvation and pretended I was saved. It wasn't a false profession. I pretended I was saved to get out of bar. You know what should have happened? God should have took me clean out. And I say that reverently. That's what God should have done. But God is long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. My mum didn't even have to ask me, but she did. She said, "Son, are you sure you're saved?" I said, "Not a chance, Mum." I spent the next 10 or 12 years doing what I do, played football, went to different parts of the world, spent my substance in riotous living. Nobody had to tell me what to do, or nobody led me down a garden path. I done my own do. But then God started moving. I didn't realise it was happening, but God started moving. And I'm not sure of the order of things, but started hanging around with Andrew Bell's here tonight. Andy Bell, Roger Glasgow. Next minute these men got saved. They weren't then going to the places where we were always going. Started the rescue out at Churchtown, which is Churchtown Christian Fellowship now. It was the old wee Baptist church. So started asking us to go out to it. And I remember going out to it, and as quick as I could get out to it, to get away to Banbridge, to the Coach, or to the Belmont, or to whatever, don't even know if them places exist anymore, I just longed to get out and just to get it over with, tick a box. But I started to see that there was something different in their life, and they were actually enjoying things. Like, we had fun when we were away in all the countries of the world. We 100% had fun. But these guys were having more fun, to me, visually speaking, doing the things of God than we ever had in the world. And that was the reality. So it did start to speak to me, but I have to be honest, I kind of came and went. Sometimes it went out, sometimes it didn't go out. And I just spent my time, as I said, just doing the things that I'd always done. But then there's a few things happened. Again, I'm not sure of their names and things, but There's a fella just down the road from Clubland, and I'm not sure who he was. He might have been a Catholic fella, and that doesn't matter, by the way, to me, but he got hit, and he died on the spot at the side of the road. And I don't say this boastfully, but that same pavement, some of my mates had to pick me up because I was that drunk, I was laying there. More than one occasion I landed in that same pavement because the bouncers threw me out of the club because I was mouthing off. Again, God's hand was upon me, because that, for me, that man or that person didn't deserve to die. If anybody did, it was me, because I was playing loose and fast for the things of God, because I knew all about it. Whenever I got into my mid-20s, I, to be honest, got a real sickener of the things of the world. You see, Moses, back in the Old Testament, he was saying that he would rather suffer affliction with his people, that was the Israelites under Egyptian rule back then, than the pleasures of the world for a season. And that's what it was. I started losing the enjoyment. And I spoke to a friend of mine, and again, he's here tonight. And these bits are hard, but let's just experience how good of friends I had. He says to me, I'm thinking about becoming a Christian. And some people, when they're giving their testimony, will say, everybody forsook me. Do you know what he said to me? No problem, we'll support you. So that's the type of friends I had. But I probably tried to clean up a bit without thinking. Stopped the drink. Maybe didn't go out for a while. Then, Stu and Lynn got married. I'm not using them as an scapegoat or anything, but 6 months, I think I'm making a tough punch, and then it was a great opportunity, so I just let rip at the wedding. And it's hard to say, I think I just about remember the service and poured it out. And I was back again. But then I started going to the rescue a little bit more. And there was one thing then that gripped my heart for a long period of time, and that was the fear of death. And I'm not a morbid person. I know some people think I am because of maybe my father, but I'm genuinely not. But I had a fear of death because some footballers were dying with something wrong with their heart or with their brain. As I said, there was a couple of more folk got punched when they were out, and you talk about these one-punch deaths and things. And again, I'd been involved in those things and had been spared, and that really gripped my soul. But other than that person that had said, I didn't tell anybody else I was having these thoughts. I didn't tell my parents, didn't tell my brother, didn't tell anybody. And you know why? Because how could the big man that thought he was a hard man say that he needed God's salvation? It was pride. And pride kept me away from the Lord for a very long time. I just decided to start to go, again, I was in the mid-20s, it was around 2009. I started to go to a series of meetings in the Gospel Hall. And I'll be honest, and I did tell the speaker at the time, and I hope he took it the right way, I didn't really hear what he said any of the nights I was out. I was just constantly thinking about things. But on the 24th of November 2009, I came home on that Tuesday night. I went into my bedroom, and I was the most selfish man in the world. Because I made the decision that I was not going to sleep until I got God's salvation. And I wrestled with it. And I tried to build up as much faith or as much belief and all these sorts of things that I could. And I just couldn't, I just couldn't muster it up. I closed my eyes, opened my eyes, and I remember in mid-20s, heard the gospel all my life. I was waiting on these bright lights, and nothing was happening. And then the thought come to me, Andrew, you actually preached to different folk when you were full in the clubs, when they mentioned God or Christ. You've believed it all your life. All you have to do is accept it. And I wouldn't say it was a light bulb moment. I just went, that's it. That's it. So I went next door and I told my mum, told my dad. The phone went, I think, and I'm not saying this boastfully, I think there was people phoning from Canada and everywhere, because they'd prayed for me for so long, because I'd been through all these meetings and never had a thought about salvation. Now it's Old Melbourne Close, not Old Melbourne Close, my old house, Melbourne Close number 67. When you walk out of my back bedroom, I got an upgrade, never everybody married, and I got the bigger room. Walked out of my bedroom, left, it was the bathroom, you went right, and that was my mum and dad's bedroom. They had knocked the wall down at this stage, if my memory's right. And I went in and I told them, I was great rejoicing. I got up and I walked back into my room. Do you know before I got back into my room, you know what came into my head? Are you sure you're saved? Are you sure you believed? Are you sure you've believed enough? The doubts started before I even made it back into my bedroom. And I'm not going to go into it in detail. If anybody's struggling with doubts, please come and chat to me and I'll talk to you about it, no problem. I had serious doubts about my salvation for months and months, and it ruled me with the joy of my salvation. Until I was sitting in the meeting one time, and this man was speaking, and he says this: picture the Egypt and the Israelites. They were told when the angel of death was going to pass over, you take the blood and you apply it to the doorpost and upper lintel, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. He said there's two houses. The first house, kids are playing away, having great crack, fun games, laughing, yahooing, and joy, and it's absolutely powerful. The next house, the kids and the people are sitting down in there shaking like a leaf. He says, which ones saved? The ones that are fully have got their faith there and focused and happy, or the ones that are all nervous? You see, the answer is both. Because it's not how the people feel, it's the blood that they applied. And that just reassured me. A few weeks later, it doesn't matter what I felt in my head or what the devil wanted to put there. I had applied the blood. Who I was and what I did, who I am and what I do. I'm thankful from that moment. I just had an interest. I'm not the best reader, and again, a couple of mates here, especially one that I sat beside at school, so he'll know. I like numbers and stuff, but I hated reading, hated anything to do with English and stuff like that. But I just got a love for reading the Bible and reading books and finding out more about God and studying. You see, it changed my appetite. I stopped playing football, and I'm not saying football is bad, by the way, but for me, I had no interest in it any longer. I just had wasted so many years. I just wanted to focus on Christ. I would have mucked about with I wouldn't call them relationships with different girls and stuff, and Saturday night might have been great, and Sunday would have planned to do this, that and the other, and I never turned up. So whenever I first got saved, I was looking a wife, and I'm not going to, but a few folks that I got friendly with, and we both knew that on each occasion that there was nothing there. But I remember seeing a wee ginger-haired girl one time with a hoodie on her. And before I was saved, I was half cut, actually, in the car. I was quite hungover and still drinking a bit at that stage. And she was a good wee bit younger than me. And I probably did a wee bit of stalking on Bebo, which is strange, but it's okay. She's now my wife. And she promised she wouldn't press charges. But yes, I can just any young ones that's seeking a partner. I had very clear instruction, so we all have. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added on to you. And I have to be honest, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I cried and I prayed and I cried, and Christian friends got married and things like that, and I was really happy for them. Probably a wee bit, I wish it was me, of course, yeah, only normal, but I was really happy for them. But I kept praying, I kept reading, I kept studying, I kept doing a wee bit of preaching, a wee bit of this, and then finally I got a phone call one night. Your persistence has paid off. I think you're great, she said. No, she didn't. I wish. Well, it came to light there was a bit of a mutual connection there. And we got married, and I better get this right, 10 years ago on the 20th of August this year, so 2015. We have two absolutely fantastic kids, which again, I'm trying not to get emotional, in young Jacob Andrew here, and Laurie May Wynn Taylor, wherever she's at, dear knows. And that's who I am now. I'm a husband to a godly wife. We feel as a couple, in God's eyes, 100% we do, but we have a God that's faithful, and we bring everything to him. I was about to walk out the door, she's not like me saying this, the night, and she says, Andrew, I think I'll pray with you if you don't mind, or something along those lines. So we were standing at the kitchen sink praying. I wasn't, Christina was, and the wee man comes in, goes to, or maybe it was Laurie May, one of them come in, and you know it's like your parents are stuck under your legs when you're doing stuff, and they come in. But the one thing that we do is we pray and we read with them. Sometimes they run about the house and they're maybe not listening to what we're reading or praying, but we keep doing it. Because Paul says of Timothy, as a child you've known Holy Scriptures will either make you wise unto salvation. We have an absolutely fantastic family church, as the way I would describe it, in Churchtown. I could have tell you about other things, I've been baptised and things. But Churchtown is very much a church like, you're welcome. No matter who you are, what you've done, what you look like, or anything in between, You will not be judged out at Churchtown Christian Fellowship. I'm not saying anywhere else would judge you. I'm just talking about our fellowship. And you will be very welcome there. And we're loving our time there with our brothers and sisters in Christ, doing things like this here, doing things for the Lord. And I don't know what He has for us, but there's one thing's for certain. I love Monrush, and I've been out of it for 20 odd years. I love Melbourne, I love Odd. I had a great time here. But I can honestly say I love the Lord Jesus Christ. And I love Him because He first loved me. And I love Him because He gave His life for me. He gave His life for you. Life is hard, difficult, and very short. It's like a vapour. Appears for a little time and then it's gone. And it's what we do with Christ. It's not church. It's not turning good living. It's not any of this. It's what we do with Christ that makes the difference. I existed up until I got saved. And I had a good time. But since then, I've lived life and life to the full because of Christ. If you're having any thoughts about salvation, come and speak to us. Just say, could we chat outside? Me, Stephen, Mark, whoever. There's always here as well. We're not leaving people out. Because my biggest regret was this. I would have loved to have been saved about 20 years earlier, if not more. Because the best testimony for me is when a young person is saved young, lives a life for the Lord, and doesn't do the things that I've done. God bless, and I hope that you're blessed for being here tonight. And Stephen will come. I think we're going to sing maybe first, and then Stephen will come to speak. But God bless you all.